Hello, I'm FPL MV and welcome back to another FPL preseason video. After showcasing you the tier list for the most popular midfielders, it's now time to showcase some hidden gems players that were a very low price in midfield that you can introduce into your 4th or 5th spot depending on your price range of the midfielders. I've showcased 9 players that can improve your squad massively. Stay tuned up until the end to see there is a special player at the end that is going to change FPL in my opinion if he is nailed. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers before the start of the season. If you enjoy the content, like it as well. Write down a comment if you think I'm missing someone. And now let's jump into the video. We're going to start with Ulisse from Crystal Palace. He is going to be their starting right winger in my opinion for the next season. With Zaha leaving the club, the right wing position is now free and Ulisse can freely make it his own. He is a very good young player that can play several positions, and together with Teze, they will be the engines behind Crystal Palace success. Roy Hodgson is staying in Crystal Palace, so they will have a pretty solid season, and my opinion will stay up in the Prem without no problems. His price is 6.0, which is a little bit cheaper than Eze. I believe that from the right wing position he can cause some havoc because he is very young, he is very explosive, and he can do a lot of things and shoot out of the box, provide assists, score inside the box, basically everything. Eze may be a better pick, but for a cheaper price, Ulisse can provide the best value from Crystal Palace players compared to the price, because in the 6.5 category you have Mbuemo and Mitoma and March for that same price range as Eze, but for 6.0 Ulisse is a very good shout out. If you enjoy and being a fan of Crystal Palace game style and you want to own someone from them, consider Ulisse. He is a very good pick. Next up is the best 4.5 midfielder from last year. It's Andreas. This year he is 5.5, but I believe that he can have as good of a season, if not even better. Let me explain that. Andreas is now settling even more into the Prem style. He played a lot of matches. Yeah, he got injured at the end, but now he will return to preseason and he can be back to up his best form. If Mitrovic is not banned once again for a big chunk of the season, and Mitrovic was injured at one point, he could have a very good striker in front of him. He's taking free kicks, he's taking set pieces, and for such low of a price and with a good side like Fulham, because Fulham were a good side last year and I believe they will remain in the Prem once again and they will finish maybe in the top 10, because they will improve for sure. They will just get a little bit more defensively. Leno is there pretty solid, so they won't have to bother trying to defend as hard as possible because they have a good goalie. They will have a lot of players from last year getting more and more accustomed to the Prem football, and Andreas will be one of them. And with having set pieces, free kicks, and long range goals in his pocket, and being nailed as the number 10, it's a very appealing feature. I know there are a lot of other midfielders, but for 5.5 you cannot go wrong with Andreas. Even though he is not anymore 4.5, I don't see any other players maybe ramping up more points than him. But if you don't enjoy Fulham and that, you may not even consider him. But even if you're not a Fulham fan and you only enjoy their play style, Andreas can be a very good option, and he can bring a lot of differential points because a lot of players will avoid him just because he's not 4.5. But for 5.5 it's not too much of a price race, and if you go with 352 or 451, sorry, Andreas can be a very good addition to your squad. Next up, we have a newly promoted player, so we don't have a lot of info about him, how he will do in the Prem, but let's focus on his appeal in his team. He's 5.5. He's an attacking midfielder who scored a lot of goals last season for Burnley. Yeah, he was a very good player. He provided assists, he scored goals, he seemed to be nailed. Let's see preseason if he remains that way. But if he was so good in the championship last season, I don't see any reason to bench him for the Prem. If they don't buy heavily some new better players, Benson will be a starter. He will be nailed. 5.5 is not a too big of a price to go for a player that is nailed in a newly promoted side. Last year they were a little bit more expensive, but this year 5.5 for the champions of championship, an attacking midfielder, basically a number 10, in my opinion, you cannot go wrong. Yeah, their fixtures are not too great for the start. They have some heavy fixtures. Even in game week 1, they have Manchester City. But for an 8 attacker, having from Burnley to rotate with someone else maybe seems not as bad as an option that it looks like on paper right now. Vincent Company has been cooking something special at Burnley, and with several good introductions into the team, I believe they can stay in the Prem. I'm favoring them to be around between the 11 and 15 place, somewhere there, but safely there, not waiting for the last couple of game weeks to be saved. So Benson will play a much big role for this saving, to say. So if you want to have something unknown and something interesting and something that can give you adrenaline, you can go for Benson. Next up we have Aston Villa's golden boy is Jacob Ramsey. I've talked already for Jacob Ramsey, but it's worth mentioning him once again. He can be a very good player this season. He is getting more accustomed into the Prem. He's maturing for sure. He's now playing for England, in the Euro under 21s, and he's having a very good tournament, and he's having a crucial role for their reaching of the final. I believe that he can do very well for Aston Villa as well. I hope that they have such a good season as last season's end of the season, because basically they could have been in the Champions League spots if they didn't have such a bad start of the season. Jacob Ramsey will be playing something like box to box. He will be in front of Douglas Lewis and the other holding GMs that they're having, and he will be joining the box a lot more often, basically like Curtis Jones is doing in Liverpool. For me, Ramsey, a pretty solid player. I think that he has at least 10 goals in him this season, and for such low of a price, 6.0, with Aston Villa having very good fixtures, he can be returning a lot of points. Yeah, he is not nailed at some games, but he can change that this season because he is improving a lot with each game, and Unai Emery will be pleased to have him in his starting lineup basically every game week. They have Europe, so they will be playing a pretty good... Do they have Europe? I believe they have Europe. Yeah, they have Europe. So they will be playing in several tournaments, but I mean, he's that good that he can be playing, and he's that young that he can be playing 90 minutes between 3 days. He's having the legs for it. He's having the goal scoring chances. He can play behind Watkins even, and not be in a midfielder, but more of a shadow role like Bailey and Buendio were last season. So I believe Ramsey will return a lot points to you. Next up, we have Morgan Gibbs-White, another 6.0 midfielder. He's playing in Nottingham, and in my opinion, he's the reason why they stayed up in the Prem last season. If they were to do it once again, I believe that he will have an integral role once again. He's good with the ball, he's providing assists, he's scoring goals, he's taking some of their set pieces sometimes. He's a very solid player. I know Brennan Johnson is the same type of player, and I believe that if both of them are to play together, they can do damage to a lot of teams. When they are playing at home, Nottingham are pretty good defensively, and on the counter-attacks, Gibbs-White is an enormous player that can score a lot of important goals. They beat Liverpool last season at home, and that speaks for itself. They were not easily breakable at home, and especially when they have a home fixture against a semi-good or a bad opponent, Morgan Gibbs-White can shine. You can include him in your team at that place and time of the season. For me, he is not the best pick to start, but if you want to go differential for a player that is as nailed as it gets, in my opinion, you can go for Morgan Gibbs-White. I think that there is a slight rotation risk in taking him out before the 90 minutes, but it's not huge of a risk. I don't rank him as high as some of the other 6.0 midfielders such as Ramsey and Olise, but if you want to have a Nottingham Forest player, Morgan Gibbs-White is the right place and the right player to go for. Next up is, in my opinion, the best 6.0 midfielder. If you need to go for a 6.0 midfielder, no matter the price, no matter the team, no matter the fixtures, Bruno Guimaraes is your guy. Hear me out. With signing Tonali is going to be their holding GM for the upcoming season, and Bruno Guimaraes will not be playing as deep as last season, but he will be joining the attacks. That means that he will be having such a good season like he was half the season before the last one, where he scored several goals, gave a lot of assists, and provided a lot of chances. He's the engine in Newcastle side, and that side we want to improve. How can you improve on the Champions League spot when that's one of the tops of the Prem? You attack for the top 3 spots. And I believe with Bruno Guimaraes that can be completed. He is the engine as already said, and he will be providing a lot deep playmaking abilities and going up front into the attacking points. He will be joining the attacks for sure. He can score a header, he can score a long shot, he can score some bangers inside the box, outside the box. He can do everything in my opinion. For me, he is going to have an amazing season, and for that price, even if that fixture scare you at the start, you can consider him. But when the fixtures become good, he will be one of the top priorities to go into my side. He is now even a priority. If I have a space for my team for a 6.0 midfielder, for sure I will be going for him. Next up, we have another new addition to the Prem. It's Quivert. He is not a new team in the Prem, but a new player to the Prem. He is a son of a legendary striker, and he got something from him, and he can play in several positions. In my opinion, Solanke will remain the focal point in their side, but Quivert will be on the right wing, and for me he will be nailed there. We have to confirm that in pre-season, but if there is any indication that he's nailed, for 5.0 you cannot go wrong. Even you can put him as a 5th midfielder in your team instead of a 4.5 and have a really good player playing if you cannot find the proper 5.0, because if all the holding GMs are 5.0 but the right winger for a Prem side who is a starter is 5.0 as well, that's a no-brainer to go for a holding GM. He can provide a lot of goals, he can score goals, he can play as a shadow striker, he can do a lot of things, and for that low of a price, even though he is not proven and even though he is not playing in a great side, he is going to have a pretty good season in my opinion, and that includes scoring between 6 and 8 goals and providing 3 to 5 assists. That will be great for him as a first season, because he can't make any progress anywhere he goes. He was in Spain, he was in Italy, but he was not the best there. But his profile for me suits the Prem, and I don't think I sound very convincing that he's a good player, but believe me, he is. He's getting into that age that he is now mature. His head is clean, and with Bournemouth signing him and him having a chance to become a starter game week and game out, will prove a lot of doubters wrong. So if you want a 5.0 midfielder, basically a right winger that can go into your side and be even a 5th choice midfield instead of 4.5 placeholder, you can go for Quivert. Next up, we have one of the Brighton tops prospects in Enciso. He was last season's 4.5 striker, but now he had a position change and he's a midfielder. Yeah, he has a price rise to being 5.5, but if he gets a nailed number 10 spot in their side and he can play as a striker next to Ferguson / Welbeck, he can score a lot of goals and return a lot of points. But you have to have something in mind. Gross can play there, Wawana can play there, and they have a little other prospect that can play there. So Enciso place is not sure. And compared to Andreas Snailed, he's the same price, but playing for a worse side. But Brighton are good. They will have European football, so they will need a lot of their players to come in the Prem and cover for the guys that are having and needing a rest. So Enciso can be one of the 2 guys playing in Europe and resting in the Prem, or having to play in the Prem and rest in Europe. For me, it's a wait and see for Enciso. You can start the season with him, but for me he is a risky player. You can go a little bit better to 6.0 for Bruno G, or just lower down your price range and go for Quivert for 5.0. You won't be mistaken, because he will be nailed and he be basically the 8th attacker in your side. Enciso, a very strong player, a very good price. If he gets a sniff of a starting spot and don't let it go, he will be a very good and cheap midfielder. He will be basically March on steroids from last season, or Mitoma. They were such a low price, and if he is nailed at some point, directly go for him. But for the start, be cautious, because he may get substituted earlier, he may not get the 90 minutes, but you cannot expect a lot of miracles from a 5.5 midfielder, but he can do some miracles. So be prepared to put him in your side quickly if he gets the starting point of the starting spot of the team. So be prepared. have insist on your shortlist, but be cautious with him because he is not for sure nailed. And the last guy we are going to talk about is Kovacic. Kovacic is signed to replace Gundogan, and if he is playing Gundogan's role, Gundogan last season, to be compared, had a 7.5 million price tag. Now Kovacic has 5.0 million price tag. If Kovacic is a nailed starter, whatever that means, in the Manchester City squad, or he gets a purple patch of starting and he's playing in the Gundogan role and he's scoring such high volume of goals, he will be irreplaceable for your side. 5.0 for a starting midfielder for Manchester City. I believe that they made some mistakes here, and Kovacic is one of them. For me, 5.0 for any midfielder from Manchester City is too good of a price to not consider. We just have to wait and see if he's nailed, if he's playing in Gundogan's position or he's just recycling the ball outside of the box, not getting into some scoring chances. We have to monitor it. But the only bad thing is he takes a Manchester City spot. So Haaland and Kovacic playing together, you have only one player left to play from Manchester City. But if he's somewhere near to Gundogan's place and Gundogan's chances of scoring goals, and he can have a good long shot as well, he's not on free kicks and he won't be, I believe, but 2.5 million cheaper only not to have free kicks, that's not something you can pass on. In my opinion, Kovacic can be a very, very strong player, and I will be monitoring him for sure. I won't be picking him straight into my team, but if I see in preseason and community shield that he is playing and he is nailed and he is not going to be replaced by Kevin De Bruyne when he returns from injury, having Kovacic on your side can be your secret weapon to gaining up some ranks, because Manchester City have a very good fixture run at the start, and having such a low point price as Kovacic in your side can be very, very beneficial for your game week ranks up until the harder fixtures come into Manchester City's way. With Kovacic being the last one, write down in the comment section if you believe some of those players can enter your game week 1 draft, or at least the short list for it. If you believe that I've missed someone, write them down in the comment section. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe to my channel and help me reach my goal. But for now, guys, I will be heading out. Bye!